So, fifth Dynamics Day of all time. What a great turnout. In fact, we had 270 registrations, which is the biggest number that we've ever had. And I think we've got about over 250 people in the room. So, thank you for your attendance. It's a great result. And it's pretty exciting for us to sit here with this kind of number of people. And we've got an amazing amount of support. We've got Microsoft here in numbers. We couldn't do this event without Microsoft, obviously our key partner. And we've also got over 40 people from Intergen in the room. So if you do the numbers, basically what it means is there's one Intergen person to every 2-3 of you guys. So I think that should be a good result for the day. When we set out to do Dynamics Day 5 years ago, actually before I move on, I did want to get a sense of how many people is this the first Dynamics Day for you? Wow. Is there anybody in the room that's been to 5 Dynamics Days? Is there anybody in the room that's not wearing a black shirt that's been to 5 Dynamics Days? Excellent. Fantastic. Hey, well, that's a good result too. So, when we set out to do Dynamics Day, we wanted to achieve certain things. And it was interesting to go back in history and look at the slides that we did on that very first morning and think about the things that we set out to do. And some of the things that came out pretty strongly were, it was about providing some insight to Dynamics, to the products. What's actually available, what does the future look like around the Dynamics world? And I hope that that's what we focused on each time. But it's not just about what's in the future, it's also about what's here today and how your organisations can benefit from the technology. So again, hopefully we've stuck to that premise as we've stepped through the years. A big part of it, and the key thing that we set out on day one, was to create a community that was centred around the solutions that you guys all use, and making sure that you can use this community to your best advantage as well. And you're going to see that in a number of the themes that I want to bring through this morning. And finally, we wanted to make sure that you leave with more than what you actually came with. And one of the, the backup measures that we take to ensure that absolutely happens is we always put one of these water bottles on the table. So even if you don't take any knowledge away, at least you can take a water bottle. So, I said we're really lucky to have a number of Microsoft people in the room. We're particularly lucky to have Kees with us today. So Kees has come down from Seattle. He has a very senior role as one of the directors at Microsoft in Seattle, and has been intimately involved with our team through his role as product marketing manager around the business solutions space, and in particular around AX. Recently, Kees has moved on to taking a role basically leading the incubation offerings for the business solutions team, and he's very kindly offered to come down, or been encouraged to come down and work with us today and make sure he can impart some of the future vision upon you guys as well. So really pleased to have Kees here, and Kees will take over when I finish in a few minutes. We've also got Chris. If you've been to any of our events, you will have met Chris before. Chris is going to come up and again give you some insight around the mobility space, what we're doing, what you are doing, and what the opportunities are for you in the future. So a great lineup for the first part of the morning. I did want to take just a couple of minutes to say a big thank you. It is, as I said before, it's great to have people in the room, but most of the people in the room today are the people that we've worked with over the last 12 months. And it's always good to take just a couple of minutes to reflect on some of the things we've achieved. And often it takes an event like this for us actually to take that time. So I just wanted to cover a few things. Firstly, AX 2012. I talk about pioneering the way with Dynamics AX 2012. We've now got 4 clients that are live with AX 2012 and another 2 about to go live within the next 4 to 6 weeks. Some of these organisations started with the product prior to its official release to the market. And it's fair to say that in some cases we have had challenges along the way. That's what you get with a new solution. But without doubt, we're now in a position to take that product and to start working with those clients to make sure that we really gain the value that this new platform can provide. Without doubt, AX 2012 is a game changer. We said this last year. We said that it was going to be a new product, it was going to be exciting, and I guess, we're starting to see that come through. The next two things that I'm going to cover are really about reflecting on things that we've said that we want to achieve in the past and really understanding whether we've got there. So the first thing is I call it living the platform dream. And really what we've talked about for a long time is the value of the Dynamics suite often comes from the value of the other platform solutions that sit around it. And we've talked about the importance of actually bringing these things together. Using products such as NAV or AX combined with CRM or combined with SharePoint adds value to your business and extends that. It extends the platform. And we're going to hear some pretty good stories around that. Specifically, I know the guys are going to talk about Bloodstock New Zealand and how they've leveraged both AX and CRM from a platform perspective. The next one's a little bit of a different take on that. We've talked a lot about exploiting the stack to extend reach. And what we've typically tried to call out here is that you take a core line of business application, and it doesn't mean that line of business application has to touch everybody in your organisation. But ultimately, everybody in your organisation is going to need to be touched by processes that are driven out of that solution. So how do we enable that? Well, we often enable that through applications, through access to data, through mobility. And again, we can sit here today, and many people in the room today can say that they've achieved that result, which is great. Again, from a specific perspective, we're going to talk a little bit about Silver Fern Farms and how they've taken their solutions through mobility to deliver value to the people in the field, literally in the field. And the final one, I guess, is 2 years ago we stood up here and we basically said that it would be great if a number of our clients started to take baby steps around the cloud. We've seen an amazing transformation in this space to the point where most of the questions and conversations that you guys are coming to us with at the moment is around how do we actually move to the cloud, or looking for the benefits in the fact that you've already taken some of your solutions to the cloud. And when we talk to new clients, it's often the number one. So how are we going to deploy systems? We're going to deploy systems via the cloud. So I guess the message I want you to take is that it is now happening, it's real, and I guess I don't need to tell you guys that because you're the ones that are actually doing it. So to support all of these things, our business needs to change. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about who we are. You know who we are. You've worked with us for long enough. But I just wanted to talk about some of the intricacies as they link to the slides that we've already stepped through. So one of the things that we're going to talk about today is the importance of people in the continuous, I guess, evolution of the systems that you have. Not only the systems, but how those people, not only the people, but how those people connect to the processes. And what we've done over the last 12 months is we've made sure that we've got the capability in our business to help you with those conversations as you have them in your own business, helping from particularly a program management perspective, but more specifically around organisational change. But we've talked a lot about this stack, we've talked a lot about the connectivity of those solutions, and it's basically how we've designed our business to work with you now. So we have a very strong Dynamics business, you know that, combined across our delivery team and our support and operations teams. We've got over 140 people that are dedicated to supporting the applications and enhancing the applications that you guys work with. So, that's a pretty solid number, but in addition to that, we've got a whole bunch of people that are there to help with that whole bringing together the stack, extending the stack, and making sure you drive that value. So, moving on, what have we got lined up for today? So I guess before we talk about the schedule, I'd like to talk a little bit about the theme and what we thought about when we tried to design today's sessions. A lot of it was around making sure that we do make things real for you. If we look at each of the previous Dynamics days, We believe, and the feedback is, that we've done a reasonably good job at making sure you can connect to the technology and you can see real-life examples. What we've really focused this time is to make sure that's an absolute. So there's a lot of client examples today, and there's a different format that I'll talk about in a minute that supports that as well. So talking about technology in action, making it real, seeing client examples, interacting with your peers. So, we're a facilitator here. We basically, we provide the room, some water bottles, as I said, and we provide the odd speaker, and a lot of it, though, is about the conversations that you have with people and making sure you have those conversations, you build those relationships, and you take those with you. We are going to show you some cool stuff. That's obligatory in a session like this, but hopefully that cool stuff, it's clear in terms of where the business benefit sits and how you can actually take some of those ideas. I mentioned briefly that we've changed the format slightly. This format has been changed. We talked last year about having an experts lounge. That had relative success, but really what we've tried to do now, again in this whole theme of making it real, is to run a bunch of focus groups. And I'll define what those focus groups are towards the end of this session. But the key really is it's allowing us to break up into smaller groups and have very close roundtable type conversations about the value and the challenges that we have. All sound okay? Good, because we can't change it now. So, you've all got a copy of the, I was going to go like this and I haven't got my tag on, but you've all got a copy of the schedule underneath your name badge. It's a pretty simple structure, pretty similar structure to the structure that we had last year. So we're running 3 streams, CRM, NAV and AX, but we also take the opportunity to, where there is a consistent and common message or opportunity to learn, we'll bring you together as a group. So we're going to spend between now and effectively 11:25 as a group in this room. I'm not going to go through the schedule in detail. As I said, you've all got a copy of that, and it's pretty clear how we're looking to step through the day. The one thing I was going to say about the schedule and the sessions themselves, though, is that we've taken a move this year to video all of the sessions. I say all of the sessions. The only sessions that we won't video are the focus groups. And the reason why we're not videoing those focus groups is we want to make sure that there is nothing to inhibit the conversation. So the conversations that occur across those tables need to be free, and we don't want you to feel like you're disclosing information that might be captured. But we'll use those videos, and those videos will be made available online, so you can pass them on to your team members as well. So, on that note, I'm just going to finalise with a bit of a view around the focus group so you guys know, or you can start thinking about where you might want to be. I don't know if you've seen this list outside already, but please start to think about the focus groups that you might want to be involved in. The guys said that what's really important here is that they're informal sessions. So if you walk into a focus group and you think that you've done your time there and you want to go into a different one, feel free to do that. Okay, this is about creating some informality within the sessions as well. So, I'd like to now hand over to Kees. I've already introduced him, but I'd like you to welcome Kees on stage.
Thank you. Thanks, Simon. Good morning. Does my mic work? It works perfect. Very excited to be in beautiful Auckland. Went from fall to spring, from Seattle to here. So, spending a week here with the Intergen team in Auckland today and Sydney later this week. I want to talk to you about 3 things today. First of all, I want to talk about some of the business and technology trends that we see as Microsoft coming at us and share with you how we think about it as Microsoft and how we intend to respond to it. Secondly, I do want to share with you some examples of customers. We call them dynamic businesses, and some examples, some customer examples of customers that in their individual industry, they have been able to be a real leader and stand out in their individual industry. Lastly, I want to focus or want to share with you some future thinking specifically for dynamics and how we're looking at the future, and also give you some cool demos on things that are coming in the next 6 to 9 months and it will come to market. So the theme for me today is all about responding to change. And why is that? Just take a simple look at, we took a simple look at the lifespan of a customer in the S&P 500. The S&P 500 is the index on the New York Stock Exchange of the top 500 public companies in the US. And there was a study done, I believe by Yale, that looked at the longevity of those companies in that index. Well, in the 1920s, companies stayed on average about 67 years on top of in that index. Currently, that's about 15 years. So if you think about what that means, and this index is also indicative of what is happening in business. Try to stay on top is very hard and increasingly harder as an organization. This is not just true for the top 500 public companies in the US, but we believe for everybody. And one of the reasons, of course, is dealing with change. And how do you respond to that as change? Even we as Microsoft, when we grew up in the Windows age, and then Apple is coming, and Google, and we are in constant churn and constant change, and need to change. So imagine that in 2020s, 75% of the people or the companies in the S&P 500 will be new companies. The rest will be merged, will become bankrupt, or basically shrunk. 75% of the companies will be new companies. So what are some of the drivers that we see underlying on this? Of course, the economy up and down, and I think we're all coming back on top. But of course also the geopolitical situation. Certainly here in this region, the impact of China is indicative. Of course, people, new generations. If I see my kids growing up and what they're used to, the attention span or attention span deficit they have, and I can't imagine selling anything to them. So those things will impact, it will increasingly, or will increase the rate of change coming up. And of course, technology. And since we're in technology business, we as Microsoft, of course, believe that that's one of the key drivers of innovation and of change. So when you look at some of the, do a click down on the technology side, there's technologies like big data and cloud, of course, that is driving some of this. And there's two actually I want to highlight here. That is about mobile and social. If I look at my own social networks, I have, according to my social networks, friends of my friends that are probably not even friends of them, and currently are friended on my Facebook account. I see people, I feel currently, I don't have my cell phone on me, but I can feel kind of almost like virtual rings coming, you're constantly patting for, where's your phone? Your phone became your most personal computing device. And if you combine those two, very interesting things are going to happen. And it's currently at a pivot point that the volume of information generated by social and mobile is starting to matter. What people think about your products, about your services, they'll share any idea they have. For example, I had an amazing flight here with Air New Zealand. This is the first time I could actually taste the different ingredients of my airline food. So I shared it on my Facebook account. I had a different experience in the average US carrier. It's very hard to distinguish any type of food or service, but those things matter, and I'll share my perspective. And people that travel and need to travel to New Zealand, they have a choice. They can go with American Airlines or with Air New Zealand. I'm quite sure what I will take next. But if you look at the volume of data that is generated, that will impact business, everybody, not just airlines. So how do we respond to this as Microsoft? Earlier this year, Steve Ballmer announced a vision around devices and services. What does it mean? It's basically looking at a portfolio and looking at cloud services, public cloud services, both for consumers and as well as enterprises. One of the things that we've done as resulting of that strategy, we bought Skype. And Skype is a communication tool that is very popular internationally. We're now the biggest phone company in the world. Microsoft or Skype takes care of 24% of all international phone calls worldwide, bigger than any other carrier. So we have a public cloud service. And of course, we focus on devices, and we unveil a small secret that we intend to buy Nokia. So soon we'll have 18,000 blue-collar workers making phones. We went into the tablet space. And what does it mean for our customers? Our focus on cloud services, first of all, pushes us to, for example, provide more integration out of the box. These things need to work together out of the box versus there are a few pieces of software, we ship it to the partner gets paid to stitch it together and make it work together. That model of kind of classic box software is transitioning that will enable cloud services where we also ask our partners to focus more and more on business processes and helping our customers spend more time on the business process side. We, with our focus on cloud services, will spend time on the system integration part of things. Secondly, on devices. And what we found, of course, our friends from Apple made it pretty painfully clear to us. There are seams in experiences. By doing our own hardware, we discover the seams of experiences for consumers. We need to take the last mile and deliver it to the consumer on a device. So that's where over the next few years, you'll see the biggest change coming. Again, cloud services, taking out the integration cost, focus more on processes. Secondly, on devices between phones, tablets, game consoles, and that across consumer and enterprise. And we're the only company in the world that has both consumer assets as well as enterprise assets. And the role for us as Dynamics is to bring those things together, to look at what can we do if we would connect Skype and Link and integrate Skype, for example, into our CRM capabilities. Every seller anywhere in the world can make a $0 cost phone call to the prospective customer anywhere in the world. If you look at the Kinect sensor that came with the game console, the Kinect sensor is a very funky little technology. It's about $150. It has a high definition microphone. It has 2 cameras and can provide very interesting 3D technology. So we're experimenting even with the Kinect camera. And what if you could put a Kinect camera on your retail floor? It can monitor all behaviors of your consumer on your retail show floor. Because one of the biggest problems for retailers is they don't understand what's happening on their show floor. They know what's happening in the internet. Amazon knows exactly who visited them, what they looked at, what they bought, what they didn't buy. Brick and mortar retailers, they got a lot of people coming into the stores. Which product were they interested in? How did they go through the store? Which product did they touch, etc. There's a lot of interesting things that we're experimenting with the Kinect sensor you can do by putting Kinect sensors in your store and start tracking behavior of your consumers. So brick and mortar retailers can start competing with Amazon on the knowledge and intent of their consumers. So again, for us it's important, and we feel like a kid in the candy store in Dynamics, and looking to all these Microsoft technologies and how can we make them valuable to our customers. So we have something we call the dynamic business. And dynamic business for us is kind of our magnetic north. Dynamic businesses for us are companies that are on the forefront, that connect their processes, that connect suppliers with customers, with people, that connect businesses with IT, and are proactive in their decision making. And unifying business with IT is one of the key elements here that we're after. Because one of the common thread we see with successful customers is that they're able to bridge the gap between business and IT. Just here in the audience, who's from the IT organization in your own audience? Any hands? Minority. Who's from the business side, like CFO or finance? It's about half and half. Is there a business person and an IT person from the same organization? Anybody? 1, 2, 3? The best discussions we have with the most successful companies are if those two roles find each other and do the right thing for the business. To share some examples here, there's a company called Dell. Dell makes computers, as we all know, hopefully. They have about 6 factories in the world where they assemble computers. Some of it ODMs in China, but they got 6 of their own factories. In China, India, in the US. Dell IT came to us and said, hey, because they were running custom software on an Oracle system, but all custom software, each factory was different. Each factory had their own implementation of a custom software. Because if you remember on how Dell got big, you could basically assemble your own computer online. They went so far with that they implemented even different IT systems per factory because all the variations they could build were different. So the IT costs were getting out of whack. Lenovo came up, all the other vendors, Dell couldn't cope anymore. They had to change. And in Dell, IT is very, very closely connected to the COO, to operations. And they both said, hey, we need to change this. So Dell has implemented Dynamics AX, our lean manufacturing capabilities of Dynamics AX. They made 12 modifications, mainly in reporting, and implemented standard Dynamics AX in all 6 factories. They just got done with the 5th one. And as a consumer, you still feel you have choices. But actually downstream, they netted it down to a few variations. They lowered IT costs tremendously. They're currently saving $3 per PC, which is huge for them, $3 per PC because of the change they made. And the key here was that IT and operations came together and attacked the problem. Another example, Metro Bank. Metro Bank is a bank out of the UK. It's the first new bank in 100 years in the UK. And if you know UK banking, it's not the most forward-thinking industry. Where all banks are focused on closing offices. Everything goes online, goes on phones, etc. So closing offices. Metro Bank is opening offices. Metro Bank wants you to come to their affiliate, to their office. They don't want you to be on their phone. Come to the office, we'll help you. They have greeters. First of all, in the bank, certainly in the US, there's no such thing as a greeter. And they welcome you and they try to service you directly at the store. The CEO shared an anecdote for me. He said, we'll open the bank for you. There was a customer that was doing a big deal in business. He flew in London on Saturday, had to fly out on Sunday, but had to make a bank transaction. They opened the affiliate, they opened the store to help him. I've never seen it in my banking experiences. Metro Bank has such a maniacal focus on the customer experience that they're growing like wildfire in England. They are really changing the industry. They're changing the banking experience for the consumers and are really forward-thinking and how they can differentiate themselves by, a pretty relatively old and mundane industry like banking, by providing a customer experience. And they want to create what they call internally fans. They think, if I have a fan of Metro Bank, and you'll talk to your family and say, hey, why don't you bank with Metro Bank? It's all about the customer experience. You can bring your dog into the bank. You can ride your bike in the bank and leave it there. Then open the bank for you. I've never seen it myself in any other bank. So I think Metro Bank, again, a great example on a dynamic business that's really changing their industry. The last one I want to share with you is a global cosmetic company. And not there's a laser here, but this is actually was their IT footprint. 4,600 interfaces. The number of batch jobs that they had to do, so 3,400 batch jobs they had to run every night just to run their business. This is, and I'll reveal to you in a minute who this was, but this was the IT footprint that we run into when we start engaging with them. And they decided they had, I think it was 27 or 43 different ERP systems. They've now standardized everything on one instance of Dynamics AX, just to simplify this IT environment. But we're not done then yet with them. They're just getting started. They're saving hundreds of millions of dollars every year in IT costs by simplifying their environment and standardizing and getting rid. Because how can you run a business on 3,400 batch jobs? You're never accurate in information. You don't know what's going on. In a consumer company, cosmetics company, not knowing what's going on with your consumers is critical. So this company is called Revlon. In Revlon, if you look at the CIO, David Chimbani is the CIO of Revlon, which now reports directly to the CEO. He is super focused on making sure that Revlon becomes and is growing to be a much more dynamic business. His personal slogan is, the speed of beauty is unforgiving. Customers experience what they think, how they feel, what they think about your product is super important. And I'll show you an example later on, some projects that we're doing with them that will take them to the next level. Until 3 years ago, before David came on board, Revlon is a public company, was not profitable. They used IT to make a dramatic shift in simplifying their operations and being able to compete a lot better with their competitors. So Revlon is an amazing story for us, and like I said, I'll show you something at the end of the session on some new technology we're doing with them to help them go to the next stage. I also want to show you kind of a devices example from Microsoft, and if somebody can switch to this machine. Can I get the demo machine on? It's on, yeah. So this here is Surface RT. This is the new Surface coming out later this month. This is Surface 2, sorry. And it's a beautiful tablet. It has a keyboard with it that goes on and off. And it's a beautiful, lightweight, has 10-hour battery life with it. And I have my desktop here, and hopefully you've all seen the Windows 8 desktop. This is Windows 8.1. It's a beautiful productivity device. And what if you would bring a retail application on this? This here, this is a preview of Dynamics AX 2012 R3 will come out with a clienteling retail app for the tablet, for the Surface. And suddenly this tablet, which has Office on it, and all kind of an internet browser, and you can do Facebook, and you can watch Netflix and movies and listen to music. But suddenly now it's a POS. It's a point of sale device. And I take this in my store, I can help customers here directly. So, I can look up my customers and say, hey, this customer's coming into the store. I have all kind of information about this customer right here at my fingertips. Will I talk and interact with them? I see her purchase history, her wish list, suggested products for her, and her order history here directly at my fingertips. And if I do a good job as a seller and engage with her and say, hey, she actually wants to buy something, so let's get this customer to a sale. And of course, the customer is interested in a few different products, and I have my product category. And again, this comes from Dynamics AX. Dynamics AX 2012 or Dynamics AX for retail, this is directly integrated to that back office. So the categories, my whole assortment, pricing, everything is managed inside of AX. So let's, for example, she's interested in laptops, but she doesn't know yet which one. So I can say here as a seller, and suddenly, I can be a lot more intelligent and compare the two products for her, with her, directly at the show floor. So I can look at, for example, the different specs of the two machines and maybe some reviews here. I can pull in reviews for Amazon.com or other services and be a lot more intelligent than my consumer, because guess what? The average consumer, before they come to a store, they probably know more than your sellers. At least I do. So I can go to, I can pick one of these laptops and simply here, by one swipe, add this product to the sale for Andrea. And basically ring her up directly here with credit card or exact cash and complete the sale with her. It's that simple. So you add an immersive app to your tablet, and suddenly your tablet turns into a point-of-sale device. And you'll see our ecosystem building swipers and stands and all those type of things to turn the surface into a very immersive productivity device in the store or at home watching movies or listening to music. So this is an example of an experience where Microsoft, by focusing on services and devices and thinking through device experiences, yes, we have factories in China and people that build their own hardware and engineer computers. And together, working together with them to understand what the right experience is for our enterprise customers to make them more productive. And companies like Revlon or Dell, and the example I shared with you, how can you turn them into even more dynamic businesses? Do we go back to the slides? So what's next for us in Dynamics? Internally, we have a map, a business process map, and this is a simplification, but we call the autonomy of a business. So which processes are there, and how do you group them? And we call this marketecture or architecture diagrams. And like I said, this is a marketing version of a real diagram. But I talked to you in the beginning about, for example, the impact of mobile and social, and how it will impact customer experiences. So we sit together and say, hey, we need to rethink this, because this is just a traditional picture of you get some horizontal operations, and per industry there are different type of operations. If you're a manufacturer, you have probably all the horizontal stuff, and yes, you need to pay taxes, so you need to have your finances in order. Per industry, a retailer probably has deeper in-store capabilities and online capabilities than a manufacturing company, and vice versa. But when we thought about the impact of the trends I just talked about, the new generation, my kids, they read books on their tablet. They expect to have their instant video right. When I grew up, Wednesday afternoon and Saturday, that's when cartoons hit television. My daughter comes home from kindergarten. She's going to sit behind her tablet and she's watching her cartoon. So the impact of that change, what will that impact for us and for our focus? So we said, hey, we need to increase our focus on customer interaction. How do our customers interact with their customers, either consumers or other companies, so business to business or business to consumer? And how can we make them better at that? And that's what we call customer interaction. You still, of course, have operational efficiency. You need to pay taxes and pay your people and do performance reviews and all those type of things. Of course, you need to continue to optimize your operations. As the examples I gave with Dell or Revlon, they need to, you really need to streamline your operations. But how do you differentiate in customer experiences like for example, Metro Bank. So sales, marketing, commerce, and customer care and service become increasingly important. And what you'll see from us, an increased focus on those processes and on those services. So it becomes an ability for you and for your organization to innovate. Think about the example of Metro Bank. What if you, for your own relatively industry, could be the Metro Bank? Change customer experience completely. And one thing to keep in mind, decisions and consumers, either business consumers or consumer consumers, are changing completely. When they come to you, so sales and marketing processes are changing completely. When they come to you, they are probably already 75% through their decision cycle before the first time they interact with you. And that's scary. They know a lot before they engage you. When I go to Best Buy or an electronics store, I already make my choice. And as I said, for complex sales cycles, so when you sell industrial machines, when you're Cat and selling to the big mines here in Australia, these people already make decisions. And increasingly, consumers, actually, they don't want to be sold to anymore. If somebody tries to call me to buy new drugs or medicines from India on a call center, I don't care. I don't want to be sold to. So how do you deal with a situation where your customers don't want to be sold to? So you need to rethink your engagement processes. And it doesn't matter if you're marketing or sale or customer service. You need to think about matching. In the US, we have a website called Match.com. It's a dating website. But you need to have that level of intelligence to understand your customer and match them what they want and be a lot more proactive about it. You need to engage with them through the channel of their choice. It might not be email. It might be Twitter. Or it might be through their Facebook page. Or you might actually want to have, like Metro Bank, you want to have that physical interaction or the face-to-face interaction. And you need to think about nurturing. You need to turn your customers in your fan base into your loyalty base. And it doesn't matter. This is not just about consumer brands. This is as much true as for consumers as it is for business-to-business selling. So I believe the Intergen team is going to show you the new release of Dynamics CRM, Dynamics CRM 2013, aka Orion. And this is the first release where we start implementing some of these concepts. And it will impact, this match, engage, nurture will impact our CRM strategy and customer interaction strategy for the next few years. So if you look at Dynamics CRM 2013, these are the kind of the design pillars for that release. First of all, it's about people first. So some of our competitors give them basically a lot of apps. Yes, it's a cloud service, but they give them a lot of apps. And it's basically, we call it internally the app flipping. You flip between app experiences. And if you look at CRM 2013, what we try to do for the user is give them one productivity experience. It's a beautiful, immersive user experience. Of course, you need to be connected. You need to be connected through social networks. If you look at what we've done by integrating Yammer, which is our kind of enterprise social network capability, inside of Dynamics CRM. So you can have contextual conversations. So if contextual conversation, if you're around an account or a prospect or an opportunity, the information on the social network is in context. And of course, you need to be mobile. So if you're properly licensed for CRM, the mobile apps comes with it. So you have a tablet app for a Surface or an iPad or a phone app. And of course, it needs to be personal for the user. They need to be able to tune and fine-tune the experience for her or his needs. So these are the 3 design pillars. So when you look to CRM 2013 later today, take this in mind. But of course, we deal with the other problem here. Every touch points matter. If I had a bad experience at Air New Zealand, I would have shared it, maybe on a Facebook or Twitter. I did it with my last Delta experience. Every touch points matter. But how, as a company, how do I, because it's a wildfire of touch points. There are people that I don't even know about. They share their opinion with you. Think about it if you're Revlon. You make makeup. You don't know all the consumers personally. But how do you keep in touch with them? So what I want to do is share with you a new technology. We did an acquisition early this year for a company out of Switzerland called NetBreeze. NetBreeze has built basically a bunch of data scientists. They build a social listening tool. And they listen to Twitter, Facebook, all kind of social networks, and try to understand the sentiment on those networks. And you can use it to try to understand the sentiment about your products or services by the people that share that. And the cool thing about NetBreeze, it listens in the native language. So there's a competitor out of San Francisco. They have something like this, but they translate sentiment into English first. And if you know something about languages and sentiment, that's not very useful. NetBreeze listens in the local language and then establish what the sentiment is. So let me show you this service, if the demo gods are with me. So here you see, this is a live system, and you see the dashboard. Oh, sorry. How do I get to this machine? Not slides. Wrong machine. Why am I seeing slides?
Press the escape key.
Yeah. Now I see it. Okay. So here you see a console, and you see the languages, and per language. This is actually a data set from Revlon. This is real life data. This is not made up. This is real life data. And you see Revlon has set us up for themselves and compared themselves to L'Oreal, which is their biggest competitor. You see the sentiment in the different languages, so a lot of English, some French, some Spanish. You see the channels here. Twitter is about 56% of their feedback. You see the Facebook. Let me scroll down here. You see the number of posts. The positive sentiment. This is neutral, and then the negative sentiment. And I can do some very interesting things. So imagine that I'm a marketeer in Revlon, and I need to understand, did my campaign land, or what did I think about my new colors, or did my colors land in Japan? Because, colors are culturally sensitive. And I can, wherever I sit in Revlon, I have this information right at my fingertips. So for example, let's say I'm the product manager of the facial products. So here, you see it's pulling up the information directly out of the internet, and it tries to, based on all this information, it tries to calculate kind of a sentiment indicator of my product line here. And you see here above, I can do that over the last week, or I have that information over the last month. I can change time horizon here. But you see, the average sentiment here is about 8.1. It's a bit lower than the average sentiment, so I might want to look at this. But I'm more interested also in, what are the sources, and I can do a deeper zoom into, for example, who are the sources of feedback, what are the key sources of feedback. I can look at Facebook, some videos on YouTube, and I can see that Twitter is kind of making up majority of my sentiment. So I can go deeper into Twitter, and here I see all the feedback for Twitter. I can actually go one step deeper because I know who are my top publishers at Twitter. So who were the people that gave feedback? And I see the different people that have contributed the most about my product. So who are maybe my top 100 thought leaders or people that are really engaging with my products, which is important, of course, for people like Revlon to understand. And I go even one step deeper, and I can say, hey, what are the posts here? So they like my, we're neutral about my discount. And as a marketing manager, I can go take the next step and even reply directly to my consumer. So I think about a consumer company like Revlon that before this didn't really know their end consumer. It was very hard. I had to travel, do store visits, and I have face-to-face interactions with the people that use their makeup. Now with a few clicks, I can directly interact with them. So this is helping, and Revlon is implementing this. That's why this is a data set from Revlon. They're implementing this in their organization to really get to the next level of being a dynamic business. So with that, I think I want to leave you with 3 thoughts. First of all, change is happening. It's going to happen. You saw it on the S&P 500. Change will happen also to you. Secondly, think about being a dynamic business. Think about bridging the gap between business and IT. That's what we found the biggest differentiator in all the companies and their success is business and IT were aligned to the same objectives. If IT is a gathering place of dusts and old hardware, and you can look around in your own organization, if IT is a gathering place of dust and old hardware, you're probably not there yet. And lastly, think about your customer experience. Think about, even if you're a CPG company like Revlon, think about the impressions you leave with your consumer, with your customer, with your end customer. Either if you sell machines or lipstick, that impression matters and matters a lot. And with that, I want to thank you for your attention. And I want to turn it over to Chris.
Thanks, Kees. All right, is my mic working? Jolly good. Hey, so Kees had some interesting points to make. I picked a few out, and one of which was towards the end. He was talking a bit about that multi-channel customer engagement and nurture-type marketing. And Microsoft have a term called dog fooding. Who's heard of dog fooding? It's basically that you eat your own dog food. And it really refers to the fact that Microsoft are enthusiastic about using their own technologies in anger pretty early on in the piece. And we've actually been working with Microsoft, helping them dog food some of those specific ideas. So Microsoft have a cloud platform called Windows Azure. Anyone using Windows Azure? Ooh, we've got to change some of that over the next few years, guys. So it's a really multifaceted cloud platform, and we've built an interesting system for Microsoft that runs the nurture marketing program for Windows Azure. And it's a different scale to here in Kiwiland. So they receive 2,000 new sign-ups to Windows Azure a day. And we have a platform that basically automatically nurtures those sign-ups through the sales closure process. So basically we pick those 2,000 sign-ups, we push them across to Dynamics CRM Online, and then we push that information through into a power dialing application that basically automates the distribution of those sign-ups out to 6 call centres around the world, each of which staffed with 25 staff. We do automatic outbound calling in person in 18 different languages within 24 hours. 24 hours is our target. And then we nurture those customers through a highly structured sales process to take them from initial sign-up to close. Again, all built using Dynamics CRM Online and some of those nurture marketing approaches that Kees just spoke about. 2,000 leads a day. We're seeing some really good results from that, such that we're now looking at how do we expand that beyond Azure into many of Microsoft's other offerings. Now, the other thing that Kees spoke about was experience. He spoke specifically about customer experience, but I'm going to talk a bit about experience, not just around customers, but also around your own staff. And I'm going to talk a bit about mobility, because I've had lots and lots of conversations with some of you folks in the room. You see some of the friendly guys sitting down the front here, about mobility. Because mobility is kind of back, right? You know, I cut my teeth building mobile applications about 12 years ago. In fact, I had a phone call with a customer just last night talking about an application that I built for them 12 years ago that they are still running, that they're about to add a new customer onto. They must have paid for that application, I don't know how many times over. And the thing that's really driving mobility today is really the ubiquitous nature of mobile devices. 12 years ago, we were looking at mobile devices that cost $2,500 each, but actually there were a number of scenarios where you could show real payback on that, right? You go out, build an expensive application, ship some expensive devices, huge ROI, and those apps are still running. What we're now seeing is sort of the democratization of mobility, ubiquitous mobile devices. And so we now talk about, you know, how can we deliver applications to more and more users. And this ultimately comes down to sort of what I call the cost versus usability trade-off, because ultimately it is actually quite easy to mobilize any of your existing applications, right? And you've probably all had visits from the snake oil salesman who comes in and says, we're going to mobilize all your enterprise apps. Anyone had those visits? Right, snake oil folks, right? If you want to do that, pretty easy. Grab yourself a Surface or an iPad or an Android, stick a terminal services client on it, Citrix client on it, and wham, bam, thank you, man, you've just mobilized your application. Now, it's not going to be a wonderful user experience, right? But actually, that is a valid scenario for some types of applications and some scales of deployments. If we take that, the other end of the spectrum is building a full, rich, custom user experience. Right? Really role-specific applications. You're going to be able to see an example of one of those. Matt Tulloch from Silver Fern Farms. I don't know if anyone get up early in the morning on Saturdays and watch the rural program on TVNZ? Yeah, we're the farmers in the room. Right? Who can share a sheep, by the way? Can anyone else share a sheep in the room? There's a couple. Yeah, the guys down here in the front are pretty rural, so they can probably share a sheep. So Matt spoke on TVNZ over the weekend about an application that Silver Fern Farms built that is one of those really customized user experience, role-specific applications running on a Windows tablet device that they use for booking livestock into their freezing works process. And really how you approach this comes down to numbers, right? How many users have you got? How much are they going to use your application? And to a degree, how much do those users cost, right? Because if I'm going to get some productivity improvements by really going and investing in a great user experience for my team, you know, and productivity improvements for expensive staff, you know, are going to outweigh productivity improvements for lower cost staff. And some of the discussions that I've had, you know, often come back and we talk about, you know, BYOD is everywhere, right? Bring your own device, I want to be able to support all the platforms, blah. And that presents a whole lot of challenges, because if you want to do BYOD, you've got to go and build your application potentially 3 times to target all of those devices, right? And that's really expensive. It's expensive not just at build time, but it's expensive at support, training time, so on and so forth. Now, there are times you'll need to do that, right? For example, if you have a consumer-facing application, or indeed if you have, you know, applications that are very peripheral to your business, say, you know, expense claims and timesheets and so forth. But if you're going to build one of these sort of core role-specific applications, you want to highly optimize it. You want to optimize it not just in terms of the software, but also potentially in terms of the hardware. And so a lot of this comes down to the total cost of actually owning one of these mobile deployments. And there are really 2 pillars to that. The first is the application cost. How much is it going to cost me to go gather the requirements, to build this thing out, to test it? And that's basically a fixed cost that you are then going to amortize across the number of users who are using it in your organization. Right? This one struggles if you're not working at scale. Right? And you know, I'm an IT, right? I'm not bounded by the laws of physics. I can build you whatever you want, bounded only by time and money. And my team who are sitting around the back in their fantastic yellow shirts will know that when they turn up to one of our internal solution review panels, that they know which metric I'm going to run. And that is, I'm going to take the total cost of the solution, I'm going to divide it by the number of users, I'm going to give it the old scratch and sniff test and go, yeah, it doesn't quite add up. So scale matters here, right? If you don't have scale in terms of a large number of users, you are going to struggle to be able to give a good ROI because you're going to struggle to have a low enough cost per user. Then we have the device and the support side of things, right? So the device and support side of things, your costs there are things like your hardware device. What are you paying per hardware device? How much is it going to cost you to train each user? And how much is it going to cost you to support each user? And this actually flips the other way. This starts to become painful at scale, right? Because you know, if I've got those 10 users to deal with, and I already have an existing application, the easiest way for me to equip them is to go and buy some $4,000 Panasonic Toughbooks, put a Vodafone or Telecom SIM card into it and say, here you go, it's like being on the network back at the office. $4,000 each, it's piffling, right? If I've got a large-scale deployment, I'm going to go and kit out 10,000 users. The difference between an iPad at $1,000 and an Android device that I'm going to OEM myself out of China, right, at $100 becomes really significant at scale. So these two kind of play off against each other. And so what we're looking to try and do at Intergen is to try and do a better job of enabling those role-specific applications and putting you in a position where you can make these trade-offs work for you. And so that really involves, A, driving this application cost down, but still allowing you to ship that rich, fully customized user experience, right? And then allowing you to have a whole lot of flexibility around the devices that you choose. That customer I spoke about who's been in play for about 12 years, we are shortly going to rebuild their mobile front end. We're going to build that to target some devices that we're going to get made in China, all right? Because 12 years ago, they were paying $2,500 a throw for ruggedized handheld devices. I can get those for $65 US now, right, from the man in Shenzhen. So we're just going to run our own supply chain for devices, right? We're going to run our own warehousing for devices at $65 each. They're ruggedized, right? We're just going to route around the traditional hardware channels. So we want to really work hard to make sure that that type of innovative sort of application lifecycle approach is available to all of you. And so your strategy for how you deploy your mobile app really turns on scale and utilization. How many users are you shipping for? How much are they going to be using that app? And so if we think about some broad classes of applications, you have some that what I call sort of business-wide support applications, things like timesheeting, expense claims, approvals. If you all go along to Don Smith's session later in the day, he's going to show you some of those applications built for Dynamics AX. In fact, they were built as part of that same project around the retail solution that Kees showed earlier. So we worked with the AX team to help them build out some of these general purpose applications. You want to buy these applications from a big vendor. You do not want to buy these yourself, right? They're probably going to have to work on a whole range of different devices, right? Because for those sorts of users, you probably are going to have a bring your own device strategy. The next broad class we have is sort of what I call line of business support applications. So these are not core to a user's job, but they are quite an important part of it. Things like CRM, right? Mobilizing CRM, mobilizing retail POS. Again, you want to be looking to try and get these from one of those larger vendors. Not so much because you need them to run across multiple devices, but in this case it's more because you need them to be tightly coupled to the operating model of the back-end system. So if we think of, say, the retail front end for AX, as we go and change the product model inside AX, we need that to flow through to the mobile application. As we go and change the data model in CRM, we need that to flow through to the mobile application. That sort of development ninja skill is hard and therefore expensive, and therefore something you'd love to not have to invest in yourself. Right? Go buy it off the shelf. You know, CWR Mobility, the stuff coming from Microsoft fills that gap really well. This is the stuff that I want to light up for all of you in the room. Right? These are those core line of business systems. These are the orders of magnitude ROI. Just wow, we're really improving the business by shipping this stuff. Go over, talk to Matt from Silver Fern. You know, great example there. I've got a whole load more I can share if you grab me at lunch. So things like field force automation, picking support. One of the coolest apps that we've got, or customers that we've worked with around our various offices is one over in Western Australia. They're a big distribution organisation. Massive warehouse. I think they have several 100,000 individual SKUs in their warehouse, and they have some really cool picking stuff. And they use wrist-based computers, finger-based barcode scanners, huge industrial warehouse carousels, right? And effectively the order comes through on the wrist computer. We can work out where they are inside the warehouse. We can start the carousels up. The carousels rotate, various lights flash underneath the bins. You grab the stuff, put it in the bin, hit the next, scan the barcodes. You don't want to give them an iPhone. Seriously, right? You want to give them a highly optimized experience. Why? Because these guys are doing it 8 hours a day. Right? Every incremental little improvement we can gain by tightly tailoring that experience to that role is massive for us. The challenge here, though, is that you've got to build the application pretty much from the ground up. We've got a nice back-end system, and we have to go and build it from the ground up. So we're doing some work at Intergen to put together, and I'm really reticent to call it a platform, but basically a way of approaching these applications to make it easier, to make it more cost-effective. So the first is we're going to support all the platforms, right? Because ultimately the right user experience turns not just on software, but also on hardware. I said earlier about that idea of OEMing stuff out of China, right? You go pull a device. I want a 7-inch ruggedized tablet. I want near-field communication. I want a 2D barcode scanner. I want an IP, 68 waterproof. You go sort of write this up, and they'll come back and say, $150. That's great. Right? And we can really tune this to specifically target that user experience. So we're going to target to allow any of these platforms, but we are going to encourage our customers to pick one. You build for one platform, and actually you try, wherever possible, to build for one specific hardware device. Really target that user experience. We're going to build a full custom application UX, right? And again, have a look at the stuff that you'll see later on today in the CRM track. This is the place to invest. This is the place to spend the money, right? And what we're aiming to do is to allow you to save some money here in the plumbing code. So we're going to have a set of pre-built plumbing code that we can pick up and use as the base framework to start on building out that application for you. It's going to leverage things like Microsoft's Windows Azure Services for push notifications. It's going to be able to talk to NAV, AX, CRM, deal with auth Z, auth N, and provide offline data storage. So basically pre-built plumbing code. And it's really important to explain what this is not. This is not snake oil, hey, we're going to mobilize all your enterprise applications, roll in and draggy, droppy, clicky, clicky, done, right? Because that's just, it's snake oil, folks. This is about closing the gap between the big vendor-provided general-purpose applications and your own highly tailored role-specific application. Closing that, we ain't going to eliminate that gap. right? Closing that gap, from several orders of magnitude down to, maybe one. And the way we're doing this is building on top of a tool called Xamarin, which provides a cross-platform approach for building .NET applications that can target all of those software platforms. The nice thing about that is it lets us use a really common developer tool set, right? Because there's two really, really rare skills among the enterprise development community at the moment. Right? The first really rare skill is iOS Objective-C development. You can go and get it from like the small mum and pup building consumer apps shop, but actually getting people who know Objective-C and back-end enterprise systems very, very hard, therefore very, very expensive. Right? So both cost and other risks. And then the other skill that's really hard to get, because the other approach to cross-platform development is building in HTML5. Right? And now, modern JavaScript and HTML is actually a reasonable leap from, the classic stuff that we were doing in the 1990s. So our focus here is to use a development tool set that has broad skill availability in the marketplace, right, so that we can keep costs manageable and we can ensure that we have staff able to maintain and look after it, and that you have staff able to maintain and look after it internally. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to Simon. I'd love to hear from folks around some of this stuff. I know that I've spoken to some already, but please do come and grab me. I'll be floating around all day. And thank you very much for coming along. I hope you have a really great day at Dynamics Day.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it. So I just thought I'd spend the next 25 minutes talking to you about HTML5. Is that okay? Fantastic. We do want you to stay to the end. So we've put on a couple of things towards the latter part of the day that will hopefully encourage you to stay with us for a long period of time. Chris made reference to Don's presentation, which is the last Intergen presentation that we'll run in the day. And if you attended that one last year, you'll know how good it was. It was the presentation that got the best feedback from all of the presentations last year. So again, we're staying for different content this year. What we also have is we have Sir Ray Avery coming in to talk to us about innovation. I think one of the things that hopefully you're already getting from the theme of today is that we're not here to talk to you about your core applications and how you get the next sort of 5% from that. We're talking about how you innovate in your business. And so Sir Ray Avery is going to help us with that message. So come back, 6 o'clock, we'll have a talk. The other thing that we'll do to make sure that you stay in the room is we'll provide some alcohol. So, how is the day actually going to work? So if you want to provide some feedback, there's plenty of mechanisms to do that. The classic Twitter, so if you have something that you'd like to say so that we can get some sentiment of how the day's actually going, please feel free to use that. You can send feedback directly to events@intergen.co.nz, and you'll be provided with feedback forms that we'd love to see completed as well. If you haven't already sussed it out, there is a Wi-Fi available. If you need to log on to that, you can use the password Intergen. See lots of people writing things down. So, really what I wanted to do was to make sure that before we let you loose on the rest of the day, to encourage you to take away some things. So, one of the key things that Kees has given us today is this concept of making sure we understand how we can innovate, how we can differentiate our businesses in the marketplace. Again, this is a changing environment where it's not about standing still, it's not about doing the same thing that we did yesterday. Think about yourself in the context of Metro Bank. Is there a model that suits your organisation, and how can we use technology to help you support that? So make sure that's one of the key things that you look for today. I talked very early on about the fact that technology is not the only answer here, and that people and processes are really important. It's also the form of the process that you're taking within your organisation. And again, Kees gave us some really good insight to how organisations and in fact Microsoft are starting to reinvent the concept of where processes fit within an organisation, and I guess front-ending those client-facing or market-facing processes. And finally, make sure you use the skills and knowledge that exists within this room. And again, I'll emphasise it's not just about the guys that are wearing the black shirts. You know, we happen to have a nice tag on our back that says we're the experts, but actually I think everybody around the tables here is experts. So make sure you share and learn from each other. So we're going to take a break now, and we will come back after that break into this room again for our final session as a group. Thank you.